PharmaVentures, experts in deals and alliances.
Hello and welcome to PharmaTelevision News Review here at the International Biofest in Melbourne in 2016. On this show I have Glenn Cross, who's the newly appointed CEO of AusBiotech, which is organising the International Biofest here in Melbourne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fintan. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Glenn, because I know you've been a Chief Operating Officer at AusBiotech for about 10 years now,
yes.
so you're very familiar with the organisation. And congratulations on your new appointment as CEO. I suppose the key question that most people want to know when they listen to a show like this is, what is the state of play for biotech companies here in Australia right now?
Good times. Very short answer. I've just opened our investment event, which is part of the Biofest, the 4 days of Biofest here in Melbourne. Last year was a fantastic year for investment. There was something like $1.5 billion went into our public companies. Both Mesoblast and ImpediMed raised over 60 or 70 million each. But the investment scene is strong. We've got increasing interest from institutional investors. Our superannuation pension funds are now looking at the sector, and broadly the sophisticated investors are coming back. So the public side is strong. The other thing that's really interesting is we now have, for the first time for a few years, got a very supportive federal government in Australia.
Right.
So the Australian government now has a focus on innovation. Life sciences more broadly is part of that. They have a major focus on what they call medical technology and pharmaceuticals, so the broad-based life science, of which as AusBiotech we play across all those areas. So it's good times, and our Prime Minister keeps telling us it's good times to be in innovation in Australia, and we think it's a good time to be in biotech in Australia.
Absolutely. You bring up an important point, because one of the functions of AusBiotech is obviously to promote biotech, but your role is also advocacy. In other words, making sure the government, whatever government's in power, is supportive of the biotech industry, and it is government policy that often shapes how an industry actually performs, and particularly in the area of innovation. So I suppose part of the success at the moment, is that due to just market conditions, or is it due to government policy, or is it both?
Yes, I think a lot of it is due to market conditions over the previous 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
But right now, the last 12 months, and hopefully we see moving forward the next 2 to 3 years, will be due to some public policy initiatives. This government has announced a national innovation and science agenda. This is our Australian government, the federal government. Part of that is this focus on medical technology and pharmaceuticals. They've also announced a biomedical translation fund for early stage funding. The government put in $250 million. The private sector has matched that, and they've just appointed, well, they haven't appointed, they've just announced a short list of fund managers. So that $500 million will come into play probably early next year, and that'll go into early stage, that first valley of death, basically.
Right.
There's other policy initiatives around patient investment, so there's some changes to our taxation laws to enable people to go in, invest patiently in the sector, and then there's some benefits to them in terms of no capital gains and other benefits at the end. Probably the only issue we have currently, as you're well aware, we've had for many years a very attractive research and development tax incentive. That's been in place for about 5 or 6 years now. It was 45 cents on the dollar back to the early stage companies as cash, and to the larger companies as a tax offset. That changed to 43.5% earlier this year, and the government has announced a review into the scheme. And I must say we're disappointed in the recommendations, and we will be talking to the government about those changes. The Minister has promised to consult widely and make a decision in March, but we're not pleased with the. I won't go into the full details because it's quite an extensive
that remains
review.
a challenge.
It remains a challenge, and it will be a focus of ours for the next 3 or 4 months. But we're very hopeful that they'll see some of the unintended consequences of the planned changes.
Absolutely. And so the state of biotech, I mean, obviously one element of biotech here in Australia, and it applies to everywhere in the world, it is a global business as well, and collaborations are required and so forth. So one indicator of a successful biotech industry here in Australia is the extent in which these companies are outreaching to the rest of the world. And of course, one of the purposes of a conference like this is to bring in overseas major pharma companies, major organizations to look at the science here. From that perspective, how are things developed?
Great. Yeah, we're really pleased. As you know, we've been running these conferences for well over a decade now, and we've always had a major focus on big pharma.
Yeah.
With biotech, big pharma's the elephant in the room everywhere.
Yeah.
We are very pleased with the support we get from big pharma. We have a strong delegation from Japan, as we have always, strong delegation from Europe. The big pharma companies that are developing in Korea and China are here this year, and of course the US.
Yeah.
And virtually every major US pharma is here, and they're here with their teams, looking at opportunities. I've had a few meetings. I've got a number of other meetings coming up. BMS, for example, are running a major workshop. So they have for many years realised the potential here. And as you know, we've had some fantastic exits recently. You know, Novartis paid $250 million with up to $1 billion worth of milestones with Spinifex 6 or 8 months ago. So it continues to be of interest to them, I'm sure.
Right.
Yes.
I suppose the other element to making sure you have a successful biotech industry is the experience, because you know I've been coming here for the last 10 years myself, and more than that even. But is the maturity of the industry, not only just in the companies, but the individuals that are actually involved in the industry, and so is biotech in a safer place from a management point of view? In other words, the experience is there. I mean, what sort of contribution is helping at that level?
It's been an ongoing challenge. Yeah, I mean, and you have been coming here for probably 12 or 13 years now. Back when Anna and I first got involved in AusBiotech 12 years ago, we didn't have a company with a phase 3 asset. Most of them were early stage, a few in phase 1. Now, of course, you know, we've got companies with product. We've got companies, a number of companies in phase 3, many in phase 2. And we've seen a number of our expats come back. People have gone out, worked in big pharma in North America and Europe, have come back, and they're now in the system.
Yes.
But it's still an issue. We still need more experienced management. You know, the US started sort of 15 years before us in biotech. It's better. We're getting more experienced clinical people coming back into the country. The sector's growing, so you know, people are just organically they're getting experience. It's still an issue, so I welcome anyone to come back again who's been out there with broad-based experience. We've got more companies spinning out all the time. Right. There'll be some more listings this year, and the IPO window is very much open.
Okay. I suppose it comes back to, I mean, what you're basically saying, in terms, particularly in terms of experience, is to make sure if people come back, there has to be a healthy biotech industry coming here anyway. So all these various government policies are important. Things like the tax credit is really important to making sure that becomes ultimately successful. Just finally, just in terms of, okay, that's the setting today. How do we look at, Glenn, how do we look going forward? What do you see happening over the next couple of years?
We're very positive, and I mean very positive. A number of states, South Australia, Victoria here in Melbourne, and Queensland states are still very supportive of the sector. As I mentioned, the Australian government is very supportive. That's not going to change. Yeah. We have an issue with the tax incentive that we'll work through, but their other support is strong. The science is still great here, and you know that very well. There is still great research going on here. So the opportunities to develop spin-outs from the research institutes and the universities is as strong as ever and growing. We're seeing broader-based interest in the investment community. as I mentioned, our pension funds. We have one of the largest pension funds, accumulated fund in the world, $1.7 trillion or something. And they're now looking at opening their pockets to the fund managers. It's exciting times, and genuinely exciting times, and we're very, very buoyant about the future.
Okay, well, talking about the future, I mentioned that we're at the International BioFest here in 2016 in Melbourne. Every year you've run this, of course, for this year. Next year, AusBiotech, back in shape and form. Where is it going to be held?
Yes, next year we're in Adelaide, and we welcome everyone to Adelaide. It's a beautiful city. We've been there once before,
yes.
And it's got a great, smaller obviously than Melbourne, but a thriving bioscience community there, and the state government is very supportive. It's a great place for a conference. The hotels, the convention centres on the river, and most of the bioscience cluster is actually around it. The universities, the medical research institutes are all within a 10 or 15 minute walk. So we're looking forward to a great conference next year in Adelaide.
I thought you might mention the Barossa Valley as well.
Well, that's interesting.
That's another reason.
That's a very good reason. And what we do find when we go to somewhere like Adelaide, many people come and make a holiday of it.
Yeah.
Our international visitors in particular, and you've got the vineyards, you've got Kangaroo Island, you can go exploring the outback from Adelaide. So we really hope that we get a good number of people and that they have an experience in South Australia more broadly. Yeah.
Glenn Cross, thank you very much indeed for
Thank
coming
you.
on the show.
PharmaVentures, experts in deals and alliances.